Welcome, friends. My name's Thad Beckman. I'm the opening act. And please dye your noses. This is how we did the ash ceremony last night, all 13 of us. Anyhow, I'm just going to, a couple of anecdotes here to start the celebration of Lloyd's life. When I first met Lloyd, I was playing guitar for a fellow named Skip Van Winkle. Skip was a very strange guy, and I'll go into that in a minute. But we played in Bryan Head, Utah, and Lloyd came up to me. I hadn't met before, and back then we sold cassettes. And he bought 2 cassettes, and I immediately loved them. Later in the tour, Skip and I, Skip, you can see I've got it down here. He was from Oklahoma. He had a strong, well, it's like this kind of voice. We were driving up to Salt Lake. Skip was about 5'10". He weighed maybe 110 pounds. He was the only man I ever saw fall asleep standing up. He wore a 10-gallon hat. He had a beard braided that was about 50 inches long on each side. And he was an odd duck, and he played the hell out of a Hammond B3. Great musician. And we were discussing how people developed their personalities. And Skip says to me, well, I know the Winkle groove's a weird groove, but it's my groove. And I told this to Lloyd later on, and we got a lot of mileage out of that. A lot of laughs. And I thought if anybody else could have written that, it could have been Lloyd. I know the Lloyd groove's a weird groove, but it's my groove. And what a beautiful groove it was, eh? So, so last night we donned our noses. There were 13 of us, and we went out to where 150 meets the highway here, and overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was beautiful. Lynn Morris, thank you, provided the noses. Jim Stanford read some beautiful poetry. Jack Fisher, Sasha's father, said beautiful words, and we all bawled. And anyhow, we went to do the ashes themselves. I opened the can, and Sasha came over, very gracefully took a handful, cast them out to the sea, and the wind came and blew them right down in my face, as in a Big Lebowski moment, which was one of Lloyd's favorite movies. The ashes are still on my shoes and my pants. I wore them today. This is Lloyd's shirt. I'm going to miss him for it. Sorry. I picked this song because it's my guitar's too loud.
I got it here. I was looking for you.
This song is so much what Lloyd is. I need my notes. I see trees green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed day, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry watch them grow, they'll know much more than I'll ever know. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
What a wonderful occasion. We're all here to remember a tremendous human being, and last night was such a touching time looking out at all of our friends with the red noses on, and the Big Lebowski moment. I guess I'm a Bodhisattva teacher in the Quantum School of Zen, and although Lloyd wasn't really a Buddhist, he was more of a dudist. I thought I would do my best anyway. So, the human route, coming empty-handed, going empty-handed, that is human. When you were born, where do you come from? When you die, where do you go? Life is like a floating cloud which appears. Death is like a floating cloud which disappears. The floating cloud itself originally does not exist. Life and death, coming and going, are also like that. But there is one thing which always remains clear. It is pure and clear, not depending on life and death. Then what is that one pure and clear thing? I first met Lloyd at the Contemporary Arts Collective in Las Vegas, Nevada. The minute I met him, I knew he would be my friend. As a matter of fact, he was my friend at first sight. Lynn, my wife, calls emotional attachments between straight men like this a bromance. So I guess that's what we had, a bromance. Very soon after I met Lloyd, we had a retreat called Liberal's Roost up at my cabin in Mount Charleston, just west of Las Vegas, up at the 7,000-foot altitude. And he came up and joined in all these discussions, and we had a really great time, laughing and talking about art and Zen and politics. He was so well read, and there was just not a subject he couldn't talk on. And it was just such a delight to be with him. We became just even deeper friends at that moment. Well, I soon discovered that Lloyd had many names. Matter of fact, his names were endless. But, he was introduced to me as Lloyd, but then I found out that he also went by the name lennyBruce Lee, which was hilarious. I love that name. And then, after sharing a bunch of music together, jazz and blues and Bob Dylan, Lloyd became Pigfoot. And I became Hog Feathers. So Pigfoot and Hog Feathers, we went on like that for quite some time. And I just thought I'd read a little something from an email he sent to me. I told him that I used the phrase that was easier than cow piss sliding off a flat rock. And Lloyd said, everyone knows that cow piss sliding off a flat rock is slicker than owl shit on a bowling ball. And then he said, I was born in Canada, grew up in America, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina. It's like I spent my formative years rimming the asshole of America.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mr. Bigfoot had a wry sense of humor, and he had a fearless appetite for life. And the thing about him, even when dealing with this horrible disease that eventually took him from us, he never complained. Not once. To anybody. I've never heard anybody who ever heard him complain. So, to me, that alone is cause for nominating Lloyd for sainthood. However, since neither one of us are Catholics, and I'm a Bodhisattva teacher, I'm going to do the next best thing. In rare cases, I would like to confer upon Lloyd a Buddhist name, a Zen Buddhist name. And in rare cases, monastic names are conferred upon laymen who lead an exemplary life. And laymen who are compassionate, wise, and have the living Dharma in their hearts are sometimes given a name that memorializes those attributes that should be celebrated upon their passing. This name is in honor of his kindness, his bravery, his inspirational behavior in the face of terminal disease. Lloyd's tri-mind was very strong, even fierce. After considering many names with my guiding teacher, Tom Pastor, we came up with the Zen name that is, I think, very beautiful and very powerful. Lloyd's new name is Ryangdo, which means dragon path. And to me, a dragon is a beautiful creature, and so is Lloyd. And so now, lennyBruce, Lee, Lloyd, Pigfoot, you have a new moniker, Ryangdo. Thank you.
Check. Hello. Yes, I am there.
Am I on?
Sure. So this was Sasha and Lloyd's song. If you want something to play with, go out and find yourself a toy. 'Cause my time is too expensive, and you're not a little boy. If you are serious, don't play with my heart, it makes me furious. But if you want me to love you, you know I will, baby, I will. Tell it like it is. Don't be afraid, let your conscience be your guide. 'Cause you know down deep inside, I believe you love me. Forget your foolish pride. Life is too short to have sorrow. You may be here today and gone tomorrow. So you might as well get what you want conscience be your guide. 'Cause you know down deep inside of me, I believe you love me. Forget your foolish pride. Tell it like it is. Ooh, ooh, whoa, whoa. Tell it like it is. Ooh, 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 ooh.
I'm Paul, Lloyd's little brother. I wish the music could just go on because that brought those songs pretty perfectly. And I had to cry during the first one because it was our wedding song. I never realized that we both loved this. I know we both love music, but never realized it was so closely intertwined. But Sasha talked to me and said, just get up and tell us a few things about what it was, growing up with Lloyd. And I guess first things that popped into my mind might be kind of contradictory to what we've seen here, because first thing I remember was growing up in Mississippi. Again, I guess close to the bayou, old 90-year-old house. Just to give you some background, the creek, whenever everything was still around it, was still creek. At that point, Lloyd he's always been 7 years older than me, but he was about 16, I was about 9, and it was his job to babysit. And this wonderful guy we're thinking of used to hold me down until I would holler uncle or mom, whichever the case might be, suffer the consequences. And I figured those stories were, I don't know, they don't seem to go here, so I'll go back to the beginning. Disillusion anybody about this wonderful man. Going back, we'll start on this path to California. And the way I had written down that he was born in Canada in 1950, but I realized last night in listening to Jim that we're not ever born or die. And so his spirit actually started in Canada in 1950. My dad had gone there, and my mom, to get away from, they had lost a child, moved to Canada to start a new life. And my dad got to a church preaching out in the open prairie. There was nothing there for young people, so they all left, and there was no kids. So Lloyd really grew up the first 4 or 5 years of his life literally in the prairie with nobody else. And I think that's where that imagination got sparked, because he had to entertain himself all those years. And as you see, it never went away. That spark just kept burning and burning and getting brighter and brighter. But in Canada, I didn't really find much. I found a few pictures that you can see over there of Lloyd at the typewriter. My mom and dad always told me that he started reading and writing early, but the picture he looks about 2 or 3, so I'm not sure. But the thing that drew me to it was the socks. I want you to pay attention, because even back then he had a love for a wonderful pair of socks. And, I think he actually had on his little shorts with the suspenders. Always a snappy dresser. Even back then. So from there, that little church, my dad decided he really wanted to go into the ministry, and moved them to Tennessee, which is where he got to America. And in Tennessee, he
moved from what was a small prairie church to a little mountain country place, and there was more kids there, but from what I understand, he was real love was TV, which was kind of getting started, I guess, in the early 50s. His favorite was Davy Crockett, and I heard stories of him sitting with his little coonskin cap on, which probably where he got his love for hats, you know. And he would, every day, well, I guess it was on weekly shows back then, every week he would go to see Davy Crockett and sit and watch this, and I'm thinking too that that's probably where his desire to start acting probably began, watching the old Fess Parker. He, I was digging in my mom's stuff and found an old script, his first script. Not very long. Well, he had 2 lines. He was a Dr. Patrick Vance. And I know this because on the back my mom wrote in her handwriting, Lloyd's first play in kindergarten, 1954-55. She kept everything. We won't go into that story though. Those 2 lines, I figure these 2 lines were the beginning of a very long life of scripts, enjoyable life of scripts. So I had to bring that along, and then Dad graduated from college, moved over to Atlanta to go to seminary. And in Atlanta, I really didn't find very much evidence of his creativity, except in pictures that are over there. You'll see him in his little cowboy suits and Indian attire, and I think there's a picture of a leprechaun dressed up like a leprechaun. So, you know, the sparks were still burning there. There's no evidence of it, but he was still using that imagination even in America. And after my dad graduated from seminary, I guess I should add too also, at that point I came along, so his solo acting career kind of away at that point. But we all moved to Atlanta. I was still just a little thing, and in Atlanta, like I said, there were no real written things that I found, but pictures. My dad took a church in Mobile, getting into the deep south, and there things were normal again. I have a picture of him in his 5th grade. He was in a play again, a southern gentleman with a little crutch, and my mom saved all those. But in the he also joined the Scouts in Mobile. It was a little normal there, you know, but still, like Lloyd, he took it to the extreme. Like within the 4 years we left for Mississippi, he was already an Eagle Scout, joined the Order of the Arrow, maxed out there. I think in a 3 or 4 year period, that's pretty intense. But those were his days in Mobile. When we got to Mississippi, probably around 63, 64, the Beetle era was starting, you know. So in this little town we moved to, it was a small paper mill town, and I think that he was ridiculed a lot there because of his hair, and that probably sparked some more flames in there to get his creativity and stuff going. But he, while in Mississippi, I talked with Calvin, who couldn't be here today, was a good friend of his. And he told me about an incident where Lloyd was in English class. They were taking a drama speech class. He convinced the teacher that he should allow Lloyd to write a play instead of doing all the other trivial stuff that he obviously didn't want to do in the drama class. Lloyd, being the silver-tongued devil that he was, I'm sure you know, he convinced the teacher to let him, and not only him, but he convinced him that he had to have Calvin and a couple other guys come help him. So they would go to class, report in, go to another part of the school, and according to Calvin, they did a lot of talk about how they could create anarchy around the school and the town rather than really what this play was going to be about. So it came down to the last days of the semester, and there was nothing for Lloyd to turn in, and the teacher was going to fail him. And again, Lloyd, using that tongue, he convinced him that we can put it together, we can put it on. The deal was that he would turn the play into a contest that was going on in Fix Town. So he convinced him to let him do that. And they went on and did their little play. Calvin said they got up there and it was disastrous, they thought. So in the middle of ad-libbing, though, they looked out in the whole audience was in stitches. And the report that went back to their teacher was that it was an unusual comedic success. I mean, so his first critique was very good, too. They did that whole thing ad-libbing, according to Calvin. So, Mr. Priccitino gave them the A. Well, I don't know if it was an A, but he passed them. And also in Mississippi, I'm sorry that I'm not discounted, but in Mississippi there was also when he came of age. He would have been, like I said, from the 9th grade. Probably stayed there for about 20 or 21. And I think that's where a lot of he was able to start buying music. His love for diverse music came into play there, and the books, and that's really where his biggest influence on me would have started. And I've carried that love of music all through my life, I think, basically because of him. I would sneak into his room. Now, I haven't told him this, but he's probably going to find out now. Like I said, he had a great collection of albums, and I would sneak in, being 9, 10 years old, take what I would like. There was all kind of stuff in there. There was everything from CCR, the Stones, Lloyd Price, John Prine, anything you can think of, I would sneak in, take it out at 9 or 10 years of age, back into this old den in the house, put on the stereo when everybody was gone. It was karaoke time. I could be Jan and Dean at the drag strip. Even as far as Zappa, I don't know where he came from, but I could sing it. And Christopherson, Willie Nelson, they all came into play. And while I was karaoke, I didn't realize it, but it was all going through my consciousness too. So that's why I say I was really being influenced by Lloyd, because all of his diversity was being implanted here. And it's really has gone with me all my life, because I love all types of music. But the books also, when I would sneak in there, I had to make my way through the books without moving them, because he would have known that I was there. So I had books scattered around, everything from Nietzsche to Wavy Gravy's Hog Farm. It was on the floor around the bed. They were all marked in different spots because he would read all of them at once. I can't do that. I don't know how you were, but I have trouble keeping it with one novel. If I get 2 or 3 going, it becomes a mixed match. But he had 4 or 5 books always going, even then, which was 16, 17 years of age. And magazines on the floors, the Speckled Bird, Rolling Stone. Great stuff to influence me with, even the Playboys under the bed. There was when he kind of moved out of the house. Then he started junior college, and I don't know if maybe it wasn't going so well there because he became a 4F. This was Vietnam, 1968, 69. He got his 4F status, and not quite sure how that went, but status changed to nothing, but he tells me that he went in and convinced them that he was crazy enough that if they gave him a gun, he wasn't sure who he was going to shoot. I believe that story for a long time, but I'm not sure. I think maybe he was just a conscientious objector, but anyway, he came back home, draft status gone, back in school. Dad decided we'd move to Clover, get me away from all this influences there on the Gulf Coast. Moved up to a small town. But that summer afterwards, Lloyd came up, and he began working there as a grass cutter, mowing the sides of highways on the highway tractors you see going back and forth, which was a perfect job for him because I believe he always told me he had reading and writing time, stop on his smoke breaks, kick back. They would drop him off in the morning on the tractor, come back 6 hours later and pick him up 25 miles down the road. So he had plenty of lounging time, plenty of reading time, time to write. And in Clover, I guess I had matured more, and he let me start riding around with him and his friends. I didn't mention that when he was babysitting, we also often had to take him to ride take me around with him down in Mississippi. But when he got to Clover, I started riding with his friends, and it was a little different experience then. So I was a little more mature and not as threatening to tell Dad about everything. So we started getting along a little better, and it was kind of when he introduced me to live music, which is my other great passion. Not that I can play, I love to watch other people. He took me to see Frank Zappa, my first concert. And I will mention also on that ride, it was probably the first time, but I had actually experienced getting high. I'd tried before, he wasn't the first to do that, but on this ride to Frank Zappa, I still remember, it's like those moments in time. You can still remember the Volkswagen, the Beatles in the background saying, it's getting better all the time. Then there was the Frank Zappa concert. I don't remember. Lots of colors. In that same year that he was there, we went to see Johnny Winter and Bob Dylan in the band. And like I said, that's my real right now. Some of my best possessions are my ticket stubs. Probably have a nice little stack of 150, 200 little stubs I've managed to save over the years. And one of those is still that Bob Dylan in the band tour. Got both the tickets for that. So, like I say, his biggest and I think his best influence on me has been my love for music. But at that time also, I guess riding on that tractor, he decided that he was going to the Army. I believe the influences were to get money for more school because he was kind of bored riding that tractor, I imagine. And also he figured it was a good way to tour Europe, to get paid for it. Now it was 1974, Vietnam was over, no more threats. So he went to Europe, spent a couple of years there, and when he moved back, we were gone. We had moved to Aiken, but he found us. I was about 17 or 18 at that time. And we went back to the joyrides too, but this time it was with my friends. So we allowed him to ride with us now. And, pretty much the same scenarios though. But, now it was, the tables were turned a little bit. He did go back to USC. And when the funds ran out there, moved back to Aiken, and that's where I think his theater days started. He got in with a little group there called the Aiken Players, and worked with them, got over to Augusta, which is probably 13 miles away, and wasn't enough in Aiken for him, so he had to join two other groups over in Augusta, and he had probably 3 different groups of actors he was working with along there. And somewhere in there, Hugh Beaumont, some of you may recognize the name, Father Knows Best. But Hugh Beaumont came to Aiken, and he had It was a ward leader? Okay. And he got in with Hugh, and Hugh had suffered a stroke, so he helped Hugh with the directing and the acting going on there. And at that point was when Lloyd pretty much left the South. I guess he escaped that asshole in the world. Some people out here seem to think. He got away from there, went with Hugh to Minnesota, and was there. He and his friend were there too. Kind of helped Hugh in his little house after the stroke and stuff. And I believe that's where he got his LA connections, and that's where y'all kind of saw from there what came of that. In his little travels over with Hugh to LA, I think he met some future soulmates, and stayed here for a while. And then, of course, he met Sasha. A wonderful part of his life is I don't want to miss that part. I can just say it. Like I said, we had never shared that gift of writing and art. He got all that. I got the looks. He got the other talents. And the things that we did share, though, that I would like to bring down was that we both had that love for the power of music and its ability to take us anywhere we want to go, bring thoughts to us. As we also shared two great parents that gave us unconditional love, and now we both share the good fortune of having wonderful wives who also continue that unconditional love and undying love. And that's really brings Lloyd to California. He's been a great brother. He wasn't always the best influence, but well, I take that back. He was the perfect influence.
He didn't even look up. Room 1634. In there, an internist from Cedars-Sinai joked with her about my health and reactions to it. She excuses herself and comes back in with Dr. Jamie Betancourt, head of pulmonary. He introduces himself, sits, and asks, "Do you understand the condition you have?" I explain that, yes, I do. It's IPF, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. He asks, "Do you know what that means?" Yes, it means, "Boy, you got fibers in your lungs, and we don't know how they got there." He told me that I was the textbook example of the disease, though it usually happens years later. That statistically, from diagnosis to death was usually about 5 years, progressively getting worse. Then, to add bedside manner to the conversation, he asked, "What are you doing?" As I told him earlier in our conversation that I'm trying to adjust to taking my time, slowing down, stopping when feeling tired, I assumed that he must mean his enjoyment. I answered his question by telling him that I was spending time photographing objects, doing physical therapy, and trying to write a group of short stories that would blend into a novel. His reply was, "Perhaps you should concentrate on haiku."
A love letter to myself. Say it. Say it, or I'll hold you here and tickle you until you do. Say it. Say, "I love you." You know you do, just like I love you. Why is it so hard for you, me, to love me? Why is it so hard to say it and so easy to deny it? Okay, I can think of some reasons. No, this is not a letter about what's not to love. This is a love letter. A love letter based on a daisy with an odd number of leaves. The fix is in. The count is rigged. You gotta love me. We're both funny, and we share so many feelings and experiences. We know each other and the packages we came in. So let your guard down. Admit there is talent, kindness, humor, and some humility. And we share it. So less fretting and more dancing and singing. All our conversation can be song and dance if only we realize that we are what we are and love us for it. And then we can move on to loving all the others. Love you. Check here if you love me.
When people first get to know me, they think I have a patina of pity, a rubber hose in my nose, an apparent disregard for my condition, and someone who could probably use some physical help. The line between the person and the gimp is blurred on first meeting. Once they get to know me, they realize that I'm making some adjustments to the limits of my condition. But I feel much like the old Lenny B. Funny, hopeful of gaining understanding from the realm of life. Inspired by Hank Williams.
Hear the lonesome whippoorwill, it sounds too full to fly. That midnight train is winding low. I'm so lonesome I could cry. Did you ever see a night so long when time goes crawling by? The moon just hid behind the clouds to hang his head and cry.
Craning to see the lonely whippoorwill, he flushed out the bluebird of happiness. The mockingbird laughed and the raven said, nevermore. Now, Hank was the ornithologist on this song. He changed himself into the crane to journey through his short life. Now, the Asian myth of the Taoist immortal's ability was inherent in his ability to journey high and see the stories below. The vermilion bird sits in the sky, observed by the crane. The vermilion bird shines like a constellation and tells the crane of the fire in the summer south. But, like the lonely whippoorwill, the crane feels only loneliness and weeps. And its tears blinded to the phoenix.
The silence of a falling star lights up the purple sky. And as I wonder where you are, I'm so lonesome I could cry. I'm so lonesome I could cry.
Pardon me, Governor. You did it for Leadbelly. Won't you do it for me? Sun through the windows, shadows of trees, leaves dancing, canvas sneaker in view, Pen moves across paper, writing, trying not to think. Pendant maintains oxygen until needed. Noise is like a giant adenoid, breathing in and out. Words without meaning, with meaning, running from brain to hand. Stop the thought and write. Food, leftover chicken. Not automatic writing, but at least some of the governor is off.
This one's called My Parents Didn't Bring Me Up, They Brought Me Down. Word given to Jesus. I gave you to Jesus, and he'll never let you go. You can try to get away, but you belong to him. I gave you to him.
Gave me to him, made me feel like a gift. Yeah, that's it, a Christmas gift. Hey, look, Jesus, we're tired of seeing you and Santa having to do all the work to keep kids happy. And on your birthday, no less. So, here we got something for you, our son. He's cute, healthy, and you can use him in your service. All Jesus replied was, is he housebroke? But then he took a beat, winked at me, and laughed. I thought, hey, new bud. But sometimes he could be a pain. For instance, once I went out fishing for bass on the Pascagoula River, and intent on casting toward the eddies and flows of the bayous and creeks, tributaries, adding their music, feeding into the singing river, watching to get close enough for good casting, but too far offshore for water moccasin nests, or the big moccasins hanging from the oak and cypress along the shores to drop into the boat. In alert reverie, I sat fishing when whoo, something slapped onto the back of my shoulder. Scared shitless and frozen in fear, I tensely waited to try and feel the direction the snake was taking. I slowly wrapped my hand around my fishing knife and carefully turned to face my fear and probably a big-ass moccasin. Instead, there's Jesus standing on top of the flowing river and laughing his ass off. Got you, dude. You're it.
And that wasn't the first time either. I started when I was a lot younger. I was 7, living in a rural manse outside Pine Knot, Georgia. I had a baseball. I guess you could call it a baseball. My parents were poor immigrants and more intent on saving money to visit the old country than understanding and buying into the magic, myth, and lore of Louisville slugger bats and Spalding baseballs. This baseball was a vinyl leatherette cheaply stitched around sawdust. After about 3 hits, it took on the look and consistency of an albino kidney stuffed with sawdust by a taxidermical hobbyist with dreams of mounting and stuffing an armadillo in the scene of its natural environment. They came in plastic bags of 2 each for 50 cents. The labels were stapled together on cheap white poster board in red letters, Wizard Baseballs, and down in the lower left corner, small black letters, Japan. Top center was punched hole for easy hanging. Yeah, I ripped the staple label off and taking the first ball out, I shouldered the bat. Old mini mimosa Louisville slugger some perisher had given me, was dinged with nicks from throwing up rocks and hitting them. I reached down, got a handful of dirt, rubbed the ball with it. Like any religion, baseball has its rituals. Even rubbing the ball, I could feel the sawdust shifting around. The flip of the left wrist and the ball arching up and back down in a tight parabola. Hefting the bat from one shoulder, I swung like the mighty Casey. I missed the ball completely. Strike one. Picked the ball up, checked my stance, threw the ball up again. This time I caught some wood for a blooping fly. Fetched the ball, had it gone into the mold part of the yard. So, plate hit the ball a little while longer. Some decent drives, some fouls and strikes. The ball was a little soft, misshapen. So I threw it up in a beautiful arc, swung at the perfect time, got the wood, the ball sailed out into the weeds and unmowed part of the big backyard. Got wood, lost ball, prayed to find it.
In the backyard, amusing myself with my bow and arrows, I was thinking of the rhyme,
I shot an arrow into the air.
it landed I know not where.
Well, I found out.
It went straight up and came straight down on my head.
Fortunately, it was a target arrow, not a hunting arrow.
And I heard this voice.
Won't be as hard to find as the baseball, will it?
Thank you, Lloyd. The title on this one is a little different maybe than in the, this is a poem, sort of about a catfish I wrote for fun. How do I catch my breath? Trying to chase, I lose steam. I know, I'll sit by the stream and tell you all my story slowly. Carp, 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 carp.
This is a song that Sasha and I jointly chose. One of Lloyd's favorites. You're welcome. Please sing along if you know any or all of it, because we don't really know it very well. Because we're dense at this stage of the game. So, it's called Anthem. Lloyd Leonard Cohen song. The birds they sang at the break of day start again, and I heard them say, don't dwell on what has passed away or what is yet to be. All the wars, they will be fought again. The holy dove, she will be caught again. Bought and sold and bought again. The dove is never free. Ring the bells that still can ring. forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. We asked for signs. The signs were sent. The birth betrayed. The marriage spent. Yeah, the widowhood of every government. Signs for all to see. I can't run no more with that lawless crowd, while the killers in high places say their prayers out loud. But they've summoned, oh, they've summoned up a thundercloud, and they're gonna hear from me. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Now you can add up the parts, but you won't have the sum. And you can strike up the march on your little broken drum. And every heart to love will come, but like a refugee. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. Ring the bell that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. And that's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in.
It's time to say the 4 great vows. And if you'll find them in your program, if you'll repeat them along with me. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to extinguish them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is insurpassable, I vow to become it.
You absolutely must sing along on this one with us.
Stop there, Lloyd. Working on my own nose here. fellow man, lend him a helping hand, put a little love in your heart. You see it's getting late, oh please don't hesitate, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. Just wait and see. Another day goes by, and still the children cry. Put a little love in your heart. If you want the world to know, we won't let hatred grow. Put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. Just wait and see, wait and see. If you take a look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. If you decide kindness will be your guide, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me, and me. Just wait and see. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little Lloyd in your heart. That's all, folks.
Mimosa. There's mimosas. Get drunk. There's mimosas. Praise the Lord.
I love the balloons popping.
It's all a figment of our imagination. Look good. This was a wonderful service.
Unless it's tied with Buddhism too.
And he knows Lloyd theater way where we
Due time. Due time.
excited. Yeah.
Me too, right?
Yeah?
I just became an MFA teacher.
Oh, cool.
Really, it's like you just have to do things.
That is a really. It's good that you're aware of it, though. It's much worse to not be.
Yeah, that's more important. Lloyd, what's your Chance. Well, no, he was with Lloyd and we were over at
I have one.